We can see how humanists deal with mortality in the example of Ken and Catherine, who had to face what is undoubtedly every parent's worst nightmare, the death of a child. A lot of people would sit right on this bench, look out over the Pacific and the majesty and the beauty, and they say, isn't God's handicraft amazing? Doesn't it induce such tremendous respect and awe of God? You don't have those feelings.
No, not in terms of it being God's creation. But yet, I think, speaking for both Ken and myself, we do draw an awful lot of strength from the beauty of nature.
Now, tell me about what it was like when Benjamin was born.
Well, he was actually born 4 weeks early. When Benjamin was born, he was silent. There was no crying. The official diagnosis didn't come until he was 2.5 months old, just after he had his first seizure, and they did a CT scan and an MRI, and at that point they saw the brain damage to the lower brainstem. Our pediatrician threw around the term Mobius syndrome.
And in fact, it was this very rare condition in which you get paralysis of major nerves, including facial expression and swallowing and eyes. How did you actually deal with this huge load? Did you pray?
That's never been part of my life at all, ever, was praying. I guess, I mean, it was just, I think a parent does what a parent has to do, and to be there, I had to be there with Benjamin all the time, unless Ken was there, and then I would say, okay, I can take a break.
I'll tell you about the phone call I got from my daughter very late at night. I was all alone in the house. The phone rang right beside my bed, wakened me, and I picked it up, and it was my daughter saying, I have bad news, Benjamin died tonight.
On the night that Benjamin died, we were in the hospital, and his little body just lying there completely lifeless, and I think I turned to Ken and I said, if ever there was a time that I could possibly ever believe in God, it would be right now. But I said, I can't. I just can't do it. And I said, I understand, you know, why it's so important for people, but not for me.
It must be nice for people who genuinely believe there's an afterlife. For themselves, let alone for Benjamin. I loved the idea of Benjamin being somewhere, but I have not even an inkling that that's true. It just doesn't make sense to me with all I see with nature. Things go back into the cycle of the earth, and so it is.
What about the people who said to you, Benjamin is in a better place now?
I remember getting together with this older guy in town who's such a delightful man. But he used to be a reverend or a minister of some sort. Now he considers himself a direct follower of Jesus. He doesn't belong to the church. But I remember him talking all about Jesus to us, only weeks after Benjamin had died. And he was going on and on about the biblical story. And, you know, I looked and I said, you know, Rich, if this was anyone else, this might really piss me off. But you're such a good man, and this is where you draw it from. We had decided to have Benjamin cremated, and we took his ashes and we paddled out into the Broken Islands here. It was directly due west out from Owen's Island. At that time, Catherine was pregnant, and when our new baby was born, we named him Owen. So just know there's that connection to Benjamin. I think you make symbolism and meaning in your life, and we create that. So we created it by putting all these little toys in the bench, or by making that connection in the naming and sprinkling his ashes off a place of significance.
One of the things that he loved to do most was to sit in the swing, and he would say, swing go, swing go. He spent hours in that swing and just loving it.
As soon as Owen became old enough to be placed in the swing, they took his picture and they sent me a picture of Owen in the swing.
Yeah, it's a very special place for him now, too. In some ways, it's another cycle, just like any new child or new person on this earth is part of a new cycle.
We live on in our children, we live on in our grandchildren, we live on in the influence that we have on other people, which is why it's so important to live your life to the fullest every day. And that's going to carry on. It's the influence you have while you are alive, because you only get one chance.
And so we end, perhaps not surprisingly, with more questions raised than answered. Certainly, humans have always needed beliefs from the very beginning of our species in order to try and make sense of the world. The concept of God or a God may well be built into the construction of the human brain, but our behavior can, to a large extent, be controlled by our higher thinking centers. So perhaps it is possible, although not certain, that you can be good without God.